Since 2001, BMW has revolutionized in-car experiences with pretty much the same formula: an input, a screen, and sometimes a HUD. But today, BMW is taking the wraps off something entirely new and quite revolutionary.
Welcome to the new BMW iDrive. It's a little bigger than we thought, or I've gotten smaller. Either way, what you're seeing here is a world's first panoramic vision integrated into the windshield, along with this new center display and a 3D heads-up display. This combination is the entirety of BMW's future vision for in-car digital experience. And what we have here is this uniquely shaped center display that's actually canted towards the driver and designed at an angle to really make it perfect for the driver to interact with. You'll see a lot of similarities between the current iDrive 9 and what you see today. There's the easy to find and interact with widgets. There is this bottom layer, which is always pervasive, getting you home to the heating, cooling controls, etc. And of course, you have a little bit of info around what the car's actually doing, lights on, etc. But it gets really interesting when you look up here and when you start to customize. So what do I mean by that? As you can see, you can actually change from the center display into the panoramic vision what you interact with and what you see in the panel display. That's actually an incredible experience from a driver's perspective because you can really tailor your experience specific to you. And it gets even more interesting when we get into sport mode. We'll take a look at that later. But as you can see here, there's a litany of different things that you can bring into the panoramic display. And what I find so interesting is it's in your line of sight. So eyes on the road, hands on the wheel. This is really about driving. This is not about interacting with technology. It sort of just disappears, which we'll see later. This is, again, a world's first when it comes to the panoramic display, but it's actually not what you think it is. This is actually a projector, series of projectors that sit in the dash, projecting onto the windshield. So that windshield is just glass with an opaque background behind it. The other part of this experience, as you see a phone call coming in, is that BMW has now changed how these buttons interact. So you saw that momentarily, the phone icon here actually went green. That is an interesting new twist to how buttons work on the steering wheel. And over here, you'll see there's certain buttons that come and go depending on the scenario. So for instance, there's certain situations you cannot use automated driving services. Some you can. They will only light up when they're available rather than just trying to use it and then being denied continuously. And don't worry, these are actual physical buttons. There's haptics and there's sort of 3D indents to them as well. So this is great, but let's turn it into sport mode and see what that looks like, as I think many of us will want to do immediately. And this is where things get even more interesting. So as you can see, the entire experience changes. The red glow, of course, very common in BMWs in sport mode. But not just that, you have different information up here. And of course, you can customize that as well. But this is really cool. Because you've used active dynamic traction control previously, it will recommend that setting anytime you go into sport mode. So it starts to learn your behavior and actually tailor the experience to you. Just another really, really cool experience. That's an early look at the new BMW iDrive and all of its displays and all of its glory. But now let's go behind the wheel. So we've seen the new iDrive at scale. Now let's experience it in virtual reality. We're going to take a look at a development tool that BMW is using to actually bring this to life. So as you can see, this is a sort of a buck, if you will, with the center display, but nothing else. And I'm going to experience it all in VR. The first thing that you notice is these pretty tactile buttons, and it's all a single piece of plastic, or I assume it's plastic, but the interactivity really fools you in making you believe that they're moving buttons, which is great. The other thing that you notice is just the shape of the screen, the way it's slightly canted and it's shaped sort of towards the driver is surprisingly functionally helpful, very much in reach, but everything sort of feels like it's designed for the driver and actually the action of driving, which is fantastic. But then the other thing is how intuitive the panoramic vision looks and feels. It's right in your line of sight, close to where the HUD is in a lot of current cars. But it's kind of, it fools you because you think that it's taking up part of the windshield until you realize in this actual 3D experience, which is of course going to be the production experience, you realize the dashboard sort of, rather than going up to meet the belt line, if you will, it sort of stays straight, giving you this band across the windshield, which is then used by these projectors, which projects, of course, that panoramic vision experience. Really, really cool stuff. And, you know, it all comes together in a way that feels very intuitive. So that's an early look at the new BMW iDrive and the Panoramic Vision. We're going to have a lot more on this incredible new experience that's going to be going into all BMWs, starting with its first version of the new A-Class family in late 2025. But eventually we'll see this on all BMWs.
Please give us a like, it helps us a lot, and subscribe. We have a ton more coming.